Last day of the month, February the 29th, actually the last of Saturday for the next 4 years. Very glad that you could join us. You're watching KTN News. This is Newsdesk with me, Sharon Momanyi. First, the news highlights. Security breach leads to leakage of information on airport security. More confusion on Tunoi Tribunal as President appoints another chair. And it's D-Day in the US as parties get to nominate their presidential nominees. Welcome to the program. Now, security has been beefed up at major Kenyan airports following intelligence reports that Al-Shabaab militants are planning to stage attacks. A leaked internal memo shows up to 11 Al-Shabaab suicide bombers have been trained ready for the mission. According to the memo from the Kenya Airports Authority Security, the planned attacks to be staged end of February and early March will target domestic flights. The memo warns that the planned attacks by the terrorists against Kenyan airports may paralyze operation at the vital installations with far-reaching ramifications to national security. The Kenya Airports Authority officials have just finished addressing members of the press on the leakage of the memo. Here is part of that interview that took place moments ago from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And right now we are joined by a security expert, Belano Kilu, just to tell us what this actually shows. And Belano, if you can tell us, on what grounds would such crucial information leak out to the public?
Well, Sharon, in this particular case, this is obviously a breach of the security protocols and procedures that is internal to the Airports Authority. And this leaked obviously because there is some form of failure just in terms of process. So at an individual level, it means that an individual who was privy to this information then got a bit excited and shared with somebody probably on social media, just took the photo with the phone and then shared that out. Unfortunately, the negative implications are that it then can tend to cause a mass panic, which is not the intended route for this particular type of information. So it's critical that it is managed properly, number one.
And as you say, rightly say there, this kind of information is bound to cause mass panic. And what would the airport security, how should they react to such a scenario?
Well, the first thing is, of course, to reassure the general public that the airport security is up to par to the standards of any international airport globally. And I must say that in terms of Kenya's airport security, it is above par across most of African airports, and it is in line with standards of international airports. However, it is very important for you to understand that the negative elements of society in the form of terror do attempt different types or change their strategies in terms of trying to cause breaches in security. So this internal memo was meant to do two things. One, create awareness, and two, to scale up internal security within the airport to a higher level of sensitivity as well as proactivity. And in doing so, prevent such kind of attacks. This is not the first time that attacks have been made or attempted to have been made against Kenyan airports. The airports are normally prepared and are aware on a 24/7 basis about such kind of attacks or threats that would endanger the lives of Kenyan citizens. It's very important, of course, for the authorities now to manage this by giving out the correct information and sharing what steps or procedures, now that this information has leaked, have been taken to mitigate against such circumstances ever occurring.
And Belano, maybe lastly, what we have had over time with this kinds of situation is that when panic is raised among the members of public, that is exactly what such terrorists aim to achieve. What would be prudent reaction and actions from the members of the public to this case?
The members of the public would need to continue to do business as usual, to of course maintain awareness and report anything that they suspect in the airports or within the vicinities of the airports. If they suspect anything, to quickly report it to the nearest authorities. However, business as usual should continue at all airports because, of course, as you have already mentioned, it is the intention of the terrorists to try and upset business as usual and to try and create fear or to sow fear. Again, one of the best methods and the fastest methods of mitigating against this is simply the same thing, using technology. Using technology today, and we have that in place already, especially at the airport, but using even more layered technology, it's pretty easy right now to actually deter such type of attacks. And Kenya is actually quite advanced in terms of the deployment of such type of technologies. Now, these, of course, we might not be able to mention in terms of the discussion that we're having right now, because we wouldn't want everybody to be aware of what's being used, but simply to go ahead and reassure the public that steps have been taken. The details cannot be shared. However, steps have been taken to up the game in terms of airport security and general security of Kenyan citizens across the whole country, and then bring the stability back to the general public.
Right. Thank you very much. Belano Kilul there talking to us about that breached memo that has reached the public concerning information on a memo from the Kenya Airports Authority about a planned attack. And Kilul there just urging members of the public not to panic, as the Airports Authority are now applying international standards of such cases. Moving on, President Uhuru Kenyatta has yet again changed his mind on the tribunal he appointed to investigate corruption allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi. The president, who initially declined to appoint a tribunal but reversed his decision a day later and appointed a tribunal chaired by Judges and Magistrate Vetting Board Chairman Sharad Rao, has now reversed his decision on the chairmanship of the tribunal. Sharad Rao has been replaced by retired Judge Justice Jonathan Bowen, a member of the Justice Tunoi Tribunal. The replacement comes after questions were raised over Rao's qualifications to chair the tribunal due to his age and conflict of interest as chairman of the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board.
There was no change of mind. What we are really in need of communicating to Kenyans is the fact that the president operated within the law. That the law stipulates that we have 14 days within which to set a tribunal. And that is what we have done. And what I think Kenyans are concerned about is a leakage of a letter, which was indeed an internal communication between the Office of the Head of Public Service and Chief of Staff, Mr. Joseph Kenyua, and the Chief Justice. That was a communication within offices. And therefore, I think what is of importance to Kenyans is that the president respected the constitution and that the tribunal was set up within the stipulated time of 14 days.
But I think what Kenyans are concerned about, even though you call it a leaked document, was that the Chief of Staff, Kenyua, was writing to the Chief Justice, giving reasons why the president would not form the tribunal. And then later, he did form the tribunal. That he did it within the 14 days is not in doubt. But Kenyans were worried about this flip-flopping and the president seeming to think that he had discretion within the Constitution in this matter, when many feel that the Constitution is very clear.
Indeed it is. And I think let's deal with what has come out. I believe it will be very important that we deal with the final product. The final product of this discourse between the Office of the Head of Public Service and the Office of the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya was a tribunal. It was gazetted within the stipulated time. And Yvonne, you are aware that before a decision is done, there is so much processing of that decision, and that there are so many parties that are involved. So if somebody wrote a letter and was of the view that that tribunal was not necessary, indeed that would be just an opinion.
All right, but is it an opinion informed by law? Because the law does not give the president that discretion, and that's what many are concerned about.
Not really. I wouldn't say that it's an opinion founded on law. What I'm saying is that there is consultation among and between government departments, and therefore, if there was a letter, and I would want at this point to seriously stress that when we want to communicate with the media, we issue a press statement. If a letter between me and my deputy or me and the next door officer comes out to the media, it has nothing to do with the media. It has nothing indeed to do with the public.
But indeed, this issue had everything to do with the public.
Of course it did, yeah.
Justice Tunoy is facing some serious allegations.
Yes.
And hence, any decision-making process and how that decision is arrived at is something the public would like to know,
Yes.
and whether the Constitution informs the decision-making process.
Yes.
Isn't that something the public has a right to know?
Yes, it has indeed.
Let's talk very quickly then about the formation of the tribunal just as we close.
Yes.
Because there's criticism again about who's chairing that commission, Sharad Rao, and that he is not fit to do that.
Yes.
Then we start to get the issue of who's advising the president legally in line with the constitutional requirements.
Yes, yes. Yvonne, let me say this, that the legal advisor to the government is the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. And that is an office created by the Constitution to be a member of the cabinet, because AG is also a member of the cabinet,
Yes.
and is a legal advisor to government. And any decision that has any legal ramifications within government is processed first through the AG, and obviously within the office of the president there will be internal consultations. There is a lot of consensus building, a lot of collective responsibility about decisions in government. And in the case of the gentleman you have just mentioned, I am aware that a change has been made, that he is now not going to chair that tribunal, because there were certain informations that hadn't come through, and when they came through, there was a change, and another person is now chairing that tribunal.
So Sharad Rao will not be chairing the Tunoy tribunal?
No.
Will he be a member of the tribunal? Because the slot he would ideally fit has been taken up by somebody else.
Let me check. I am not sure exactly whether he is a member of the tribunal, but what I know is that he is not the chair, and that somebody else is the chair.
Can you tell us who?
I think he's Jonathan Havelock.
So retired Justice Jonathan Havelock
Yes.
will chair the Tunoy tribunal. Is that something you can confirm to us tonight?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Kennedy Kihara was the principal.
National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi has warned governors that the Senate will soon start its county's oversight duties and that no governor should complain if found to have misused funds. Speaking at Kangeta Catholic Church, where he was the chief of guest in a church Harambe, Muturi said that the National Assembly has already allocated the Senate money in the coming supplementary budget to facilitate in the oversight duties as required by the Constitution. The Speaker said counties should be ready to face the Senate and state how they have used the money allocated to them from the national government.
As National Assembly, enable the Senate to monitor what is being done by the devolved units. And we are beginning with the supplementary budget that is coming. Mheshimiwa Linturi. Na labda watu wa Meru hapa hawajajua, wacha niwaambie. Labda hawajui Linturi. Wakati Senate walikuwa nataka 1 billion, ikaleta taabu nini, walipoketi katika Senate, wakaangalia sijui vipi. I don't know why, ni nini ilifanya waangalie hiyo maneno. Wakachagua, kasema ule mtu anaweza sikizana na Muturi, kwa sababu hiyo maneno ililetwa kwangu as a chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Wakaona ule mtu ataongoza hiyo maneno iweze kufika pahali ni Senator Kiraito.
Staying with us, you're watching Newsdesk. Now let's recap our top story this hour. And security has been beefed up at major Kenyan airports following intelligence reports that Al-Shabaab militants are planning to stage attacks. A leaked internal memo shows that up to 11 Al-Shabaab suicide bombers have been trained ready for the mission. According to the memo from the Kenya Airports Authority Security, the planned attacks to be staged end of February and early March will target domestic flights. The memo warns that the planned attacks by the terrorists against Kenyan airports may paralyze operations at the vital installations with far-reaching ramifications to national security. Now, the Kenya Airports Authority officials have just finished addressing members of the press on the leakage of the memo. Here now is part of that interview that took place moments ago from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
My attention has been drawn to an internal memo from my office to all airport managers in Kenya warning them against a possible terrorist attack. We wish to inform the general public